If they told me that these 3 days would have lasted a lifetime, would it have been any easier to endure? The 3 days that felt like an eternity. The only comfort I get out of it is the song. Those 6 notes reminding me to try again, as if it's some cruel game and I'm player 1. And back to day 1 it is. I really like those markings though. They were quite therapeutic. They prevented me from thinking about the obvious questions. Who? Why? What? I swear when I find out who did this, I will bury them like the ET cartridges that have been buried in New Mexico. But then again, it's always been a game. Always. The moon, the masks, whatever the fuck Tingle is supposed to be, only they are the roadblocks to my salvation, my escape. There's only one way out of this, and I have to make it fucking count. The only way I could break the loop is by reviewing the game. So it looks like I better get started then. The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask ultimately sold 3 million copies worldwide and gathered positive reviews all around. Game Informer called the 3-day cycle system one of the most inventive premises in all of gaming history. N64 magazine ended their review by saying it was told that Majora's Mask should cower in the shadow of Ocarina of Time. Instead, it shines just as brightly, awarding the game a 96% out of 100. GamePro characterized the story as surreal and spooky, deep and intriguing, and of course IGN described Majora's Mask as the Empire Strikes Back of the Nintendo 64. I'm sorry, I'm gonna need a minute. The Empire Strikes Back of the Nintendo... I've never seen any of the Star Wars movies whatsoever. Essentially what they were getting at was, in comparison to Ocarina of Time, it's a much more intelligent game. It's darker and tells a much better story. So why not just say that instead of going with the analogy? Anyway, remember in the previous review when I mentioned that whole Zelda tournament? Well, Majora's Mask was voted the second best Zelda game of all time. It beat Four Swords Adventures in round 1, A Link to the Past in round 2, Twilight Princess in round 3, and then it lost to Ocarina of Time in the final round. So yeah, as you can tell, this franchise sort of has an ongoing battle within the fandom. But then again, every fandom has its own battles. I mean, take a look at the Doctor Who fandom, for example. Hey, Lewis!
Oh, hey, Smarty! What can I do for you on this fine day?
11 is better than 7, and Cybermats are fucking stupid. Okay, thanks, bye!
Boyo, play the song!
What a swell guy. Anyway, so on that note, let's encounter this oh-so-terrible fate by talking about the oh god damn it! One of the darker stories in the Zelda series, Majora's Mask takes place several months after the Ocarina of Time. While riding through the lost woods of Hyrule on his horse Epona, the Masked Skull Kid and his fairy accomplices Tattle and Tail ambush Link and steal both Epona and the Ocarina of Time from him. Link follows them into a dark cave where he falls down a mysterious deep hole. The Skull Kid confronts him at the bottom and curses him by turning him into a Deku Scrub. Tattle stops Link from going after the Skull Kid as the latter escapes with Tail through a door. Realizing that she needs Link's help to find them, Tattle insists they work together. After reaching the inside of the clock tower in Termina, Link meets the Happy Mask Salesman, who seem to have been following him. The salesman offers to help Link recover from his curse, in exchange of which he must retrieve both the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask from the Skull Kid within 3 days. You then spend the first 3 days racing through Termina to understand what has happened to you, what is going on with the town, and discovering how to reach the Skull Kid by the end of the time limit. As Link, you only succeed in getting the Ocarina of Time before rewinding time to the beginning, the biggest life-saving mechanic in the game. Once back at the start, the Happy Mask Salesman offers to lift the curse, which you can now use as a mask. Plus, you learn a new song that could be played on the Ocarina of Time, the Song of Healing. But only because you almost succeeded at getting his mask back.
Oh, I see how it is. I lift a curse for you, and you do jack shit for me. Now, usually I would say close but no cigar on this one, but as a happy mask salesman, I'm obliged to do things for you, so have this half of the tobacco. Now go get me that mask, fatty!
From that point on, the rest of the story is essentially going from area to area, discovering the damage the Skull Kid has done to the land, help the people, awaken the giants that will help you save the land, and then take on Skull Kid once more. Okay, so here's the part where pretty much all of the Zelda fans are gonna reveal themselves in the comments. This game's story is way better than Ocarina of Time's. I've always had a penchant for darker storytelling in fantasy, and Majora's Mask is really, really dark. The mere concept of Majora's Mask blows Ocarina out of the water. Like, let's put it in perspective here. In Ocarina of Time, Link travels back and forth in time in order to right various wrongs and stop the evil Ganondorf from using the Triforce for his own personal gain. In Majora's Mask, you are literally on a quest to stop the apocalypse. There's no princesses to be rescued in this game. You're pretty much given 3 days to stop the moon from falling on Termina. That's some heavy shit. The whole scenario of the moon falling down on Termina has some pretty serious symbolism behind it. Maybe I'm reading into it way too much, but honestly, while most people think that the 3-day aspect of the game is annoying, the story really left me with the notion that nothing lasts forever. Nothing that you do will ever last, and while that is annoying in the gameplay, we'll talk about that more later, it makes sense as to why it's a vital part of the story and the game itself. One last thing I gotta bring up though, the pacing of this game is so much better than Ocarina. Let me do the math for you, so you don't have to, okay? It took me about 5 hours to get all of the footage I needed for the story segment of the Ocarina of Time review. You know how long it took in Majora's Mask? 1 hour and fucking 10 minutes! I don't know if I'm just bad with Zelda in general, but I get this feeling that I really shouldn't be dreading Ocarina's gameplay. Constantly saying to myself, come on game, go faster, go faster! But overall guys, I really love the story to Majora's Mask. It's one of the more unconventional stories in the Zelda franchise, and just in general, it's a dark tale. Oh boy, the gameplay of Majora's Mask. Well, at first when I started to actually write this review, I had the most obvious statement of all time. It's the fucking same thing as Ocarina. Same basic combat, same clunky gameplay mechanics that managed to show their ass up again, auto jump comes back, erratic camera movements, you know, the same old song and dance. However, there's 2 aspects of this game that technically swayed my opinion from that, and those are masks and time. Throughout the story of Majora's Mask, you come across a total of 24 masks. Each of them will aid you in a different way, for example, the Deku Scrub mask. With that mask, you can hop over water and use flowers to hang glide through the air. This you need to do within the first temple. In the second temple, you'll utilize the powers of the Goron mask, which give you great strength and let you roll up into a ball. The Blast mask allows you to blow up things with your face. The Great Fairy's Masks allows you to attract fairies to you to collect and bring back to the Great Fairy. And of course, Kamaro's Mask allows you to be a fabulous dancer! And again, there's 24 of these fucking masks. 24! 24! 24! Now, as for time, this is a huge aspect of the game, and a lot of people were actually annoyed by this, as I mentioned before. However, I'd like to think that the 3-day cycle gimmick actually has some deeper meaning to it. Let me clue you in. This weight of mortality is added to the game that you really wouldn't find in other Zelda games. There are missions all over Termina where you have the opportunity to save someone or help an individual, but at the end of those 3 days, everything resets, so it's understandable as to why it's annoying. I was more annoyed at the fact that the time goes by uber fast, and when you have no idea what you're doing, that feels like a kick in the nuts because frankly, this game does not hold your hand. The moment I got into Clocktown, I pretty much spent the first day saying, what the holy balls do I do? You just keep running around like a fucking chicken with your head cut off throughout Clocktown as the days run its course, leaving you in a pissed off frenzy to assemble any dignity you have left as the moon gets closer. Jesus, I may or may not have some anxiety issues, don't I? You know, you really don't need to rub it in. Now, as I mentioned before in the Ocarina of Time review, that my favorite aspect of the entire game was Hyrule itself. I felt that it was one of the better hub worlds in a game. And honestly, Termina seems like it's a more polished yet smaller Hyrule. Aside from that, I got nothing else to say about the gameplay. It's pretty much the same as Ocarina, aside from the two major things in my opinion that at least made the game better.
Huh. That's new.
So as for the overall presentation of Majora's Motherfucker just skipped a day! The overall presentation is honestly fan-fucking-tastic. Like, right from the opening cutscene, I was drawn in by the atmosphere. The foggy, murky lighting sets the stage, letting you know that this is not going to be your average adventure. I noticed, by the way, that both of the introductory cutscenes in Zelda are generally the most eye-catching aspects of the game. Ocarina of Time with its first-person perspective of Navi flying into your house, and Majora with your slow but tense ride with Epona through the murky woods of Termina. Almost as if Miyamoto was out there with some mental fishing hook, just baiting you with such beautiful cutscenes.
No, Miyamoto! You shall not tempt me with such pleasantries. Not since last time.
The visuals themselves are 10 times better than Ocarina of Time. Less pixely Link, better looking textures, and overall a much better looking environment. Granted, of course, Ocarina came out 2 years prior, so there was that tiny jump in technology that really helped out. Now, one of the more interesting complaints I've heard about the game is that the characters themselves are very lazily designed, like as if Nintendo copy-pasted them out of Hyrule and put them in Termina. But let's look at it like this. Majora's Mask actually has one thing that ties the two stories together like a knot. No, it isn't the opening cutscene where Link is looking for Navi. That would be stupid. Of course, it's actually the Happy Mask Salesman. The Happy Mask Salesman in Majora's Mask is actually the only character that is canonical. After all, he is a weary traveler who searches for masks to add to his collection and shop. Plus, he seems to know a bunch about Link's past adventures, and is always chipper to see him.
Oh.
Moving on, the sound design of Majora's Mask. Holy shit, man. It's fucking awesome. Remember when I was talking about the whole atmosphere thing? You know, with the whole mental fishing and all that jazz? Well, simply put, Majora's Mask's soundtrack is really the final nail in the coffin for the game. I mean, Let me love you, Koji. The sound design itself, however, is very similar to Ocarina of Time. However, there is a bit of eeriness to it. The outer workings of Termina, the dungeons are packed with frightening sounds that'll send a chill down your spine. Even the Ocarina songs you learn have their own sort of creepiness to them. Like, the first song you hear is the Song of Healing, and that is pretty goddamn haunting. Even the Song of Time played backwards sounds like this subliminal message creepypasta that could be abused to shit when put in the wrong hands. Overall, though, I really like Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask. Of course, much like its predecessor, it's heavily nostalgia-based. Like I said earlier, I spent the first 3 days of the actual game trying to figure out what the fuck to do. But that aside, I love how immersive and dark the story is for a Zelda game. Sure, the 3-day cycle mechanic is annoying, but honestly it shows how unfortunately nothing lasts forever and how there could be some sort of impending doom lurking in the not-so-distant future. I'd suggest picking this up. Even if you aren't a diehard Zelda fan, it's probably one of the more unconventional games in the Zelda series, and to that, I say it's worth it.
So that's it. It's finally over. Finally, I could rest easy. The moonpocalypse is over. I don't need to deal with this anymore. And on that note, another episode of Last on the Bandwagon comes to a close. I hope you enjoyed it, because frankly, Ocarina and Majora were two of the first games I drafted up on the list when I wanted to do this series in general. So, it's finally nice to have that burden rest and not on my shoulders anymore. So with that said, I will talk to you guys later. This is Smarty signing. No! No, that's not fair. I beat the games, the reviews are over, there can't be more!
Hello?
Did you like the game?
Doug? Doug, how did you...
You have no idea what you got yourself into, do you, Smarty? Well, let me clue you in. I'm the one in control here, all thanks to you.
Me? What are you talking about me? What did I have to do with any of this?
It was all pretty simple, actually. All I needed to do was get the tools for you to operate. Or should I say, tool, or instrument, or musical.
The ocarina?
The ocarina! All I needed to do was get you to play the Song of Critique, and the plan was in motion. So, of course, I hired some help to get it to you.
That makes literally no sense.
That's where you're wrong. As all of us know, when the song is played in reverse, it begins something devious.
The moon?
The very same! And of course, all I needed was that recording. And Smarty, you practically handed it to me on a silver plate. Your show is practically in this 3-day limbo of reviewing the same Zelda games over and over, trying to break the cycle as your world crumbles around you, piece by piece.
No, it can't end like this, Doug. I did what you wanted. The reviews are over. The loop is closed. Do you hear me?
Oh, I hear you, Smarty, but you seem to be forgetting one thing. It's the first day. This is only the beginning of your nightmare. Pleasant dreams.
No! Doug! Don't leave like this! Doug! Laugh, and the world laughs with you. Weep, and you weep alone. Though, I suppose a good laugh would suffice for an ending such as this. Looks like I'm not the one having a terrible fate this time. So that's my story, ladies and gentlemen. That's my tale of how I reviewed 2 Zelda games, stopped the moon from crashing into the earth, and overall had a fun time. And also, this is the end of Season 1 of Last on the Bandwagon, so who knows what will be in store for next season. For now, I'll talk to you guys later. This is... You know what? It can wait. Anyway, for now, I'll talk to you guys later. This is Smarty, signing off.